a big thing that we're doing. It's about fraud, having to do with all the fraud that's taking place in our country. And we have people that are extremely brilliant and just very talented, and they're going to be put in charge. But I'd like to ask Will, if you would, to give a little description of what we're signing.
They're going after fraud? Yeah.
And I'll ask JD.
Finally.
Yes, sir. As you stated in your State of the Union address, in light of widespread revelations of fraud in federally funded programs in states like Minnesota and California, this executive order in front of you will establish a new task force aimed at rooting out that fraud, returning potentially billions or tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of dollars to the American taxpayer. This task force will be chaired by the Vice President. The Vice Chairman will be the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, who's with us here as well today. But this is going to launch a whole-of-government approach to rooting out the very serious problem of fraud in federally funded programs around the country.
Great. Did Vance
As
lose
an example,
weight?
you know,
I feel like you lost weight.
And seeing it pretty big in Minnesota, $19 billion.
I've just seen him in memes too much.
But that's only for one little aspect of the fraud. It's $19 billion, and California, as they say, is 10 times worse, and other states are
probably more than that.
This is not a Republican-Democrat thing. This is wherever it's taking place.
Yeah, of course.
It seems that it's usually in blue states. If it's in a red state, we're going there too. But it seems that it's heavily, heavily, heavily Democrat. And what they've done is so sad. When you look at the Minnesota scam, a lot of it has to do with Somalia. Nobody's calling out anybody, but a lot of it has to do, but it's Somalia and plenty of others. And I believe the governor is complicit. I believe Ilhan Omar is complicit. I believe that your Attorney General is complicit. And if they are, you're going to hopefully find out about it, and you're going to have to do what you have to do. If we found half of the fraud that's taking place in this country, and I think you have a chance of doing that, we would have much more than a balanced budget. That's the kind of numbers you're talking about. The theft is incredible. And I think JD will make, and Andrew will make a charge later on that local states should handle nursing homes and all of these things that the federal government shouldn't be involved in. It's too big. The federal government should handle military and a couple of other things. But when it comes to nursing homes, you saw where a young gentleman was going around and knocking on doors, and none of the nursing homes existed, none of the nurseries existed. The money that's being paid out, and the federal government pays for it. When you see all these people coming in illegally into our country, many criminals, many drug dealers, murderers, 11,888 murders, and you look at California, and more come in.
Nick, he does.
Money, and yet they pay him. You know why they pay him? Because the federal government is charged with paying. We're not paying them anymore, and I said that.
Young gentleman.
So these two really smart guys are going to be, I think it's going to, hopefully it's going to be JD's. This will not be like a Kamala where she was put in charge of the border and she never went there, JD, right? You promise?
I promise, sir.
Remember, Kamala was put in charge. She was the border czar. She never went to the border. She never called any of the great Border Patrol. The Border Patrol testified. We never spoke to her in 4 years. And that was a disaster.
I like how it just says Kamala. People start laughing.
I think maybe before JD, I'll ask Stephen Miller say a few words. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, under President Trump's leadership, as we've seen, the illegal flow across the southern border was stopped completely. But what we found since President Trump came into office is that the Democrats have set up a system to funnel hundreds of billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to migrants that are in our country, oftentimes from places like Somalia. So as an example, ICE recently asked a group of illegal immigrants that were in detention whether or not they were receiving Medicaid. Half of them raised their hand and volunteered that they were on Medicaid. Just volunteered that. These aren't the ones who are hiding it, right? They also asked illegal aliens how they paid their medical bills, and they said that if they don't have Medicaid, they go to hospitals, they get free care there, and they bill it to the taxpayers. So they aren't paying for any of their own health care in this country. This is one example. And we've seen this over and over and over again. So under President Trump's leadership, and then of course with JD and the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, we are going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers. I believe, and I know President Trump believes, that when this theft is exposed, we will see that if all of it were stopped, it would be enough to balance the budget.
That's
the
right.
extraction
That's
of wealth from American taxpayers to people who don't
Trillions.
belong here is the primary cause of the national debt, and this is the first ever
my
effort to
God.
shut that down. Thank you, Mr. President.
First ever. And everyone knows they've been cheating for years.
There
It's
he
the
is.
first ever.
There he is, right there.
And it's got to be stopped.
Holy
It's gotta be
shit.
stopped. It's-
Finally saying it?
Think
Yeah.
of it, Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth world
Bozos on
nation.
notice.
One of the worst, one of the most dangerous. They don't have
Did he
anything.
call it a
They don't
fourth
have
world?
councils. They don't have government. They don't have police. They shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 billion. It's crazy. And Ilhan Omar, I hope this is part of it, but she married her brother supposedly. I mean, there's a lot of documentation. That means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman.
Get her out, bro.
And I hope you're going to be looking at that, or
Get
somebody
the
is.
bitch
all right?
out.
Because she's one of the ringleaders here. She's
Fourth
bad news.
world
Really bad
country.
news. She's so bad for our country. Anyway,
Wow.
JD,
True.
please say a few words.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. President. This is a very important whole of government approach to tackle
Yes.
the fraud problem. And let me just tell
Bring
one
you
story.
on back.
One of the things that even before this executive order was signed that we were able to stop under the president's leadership is we saw evidence that in Minneapolis there were Somalis, primarily illegal immigrants, who were defrauding a Medicaid program that was meant to go to autistic children. So they were taking children who were supposed to get benefits, and they were claiming that their kids were actually autistic
That's
even
right.
though they weren't.
Yes.
And what did this mean? Number one, there are a lot of people who were rich off of fraud while American citizens got poor. And the second thing is that autistic kids in urban Minneapolis who weren't getting benefits they needed because Somali fraud was literally stealing out of their pocket. It's got to
Yes.
stop. And unfortunately,
The
that kind of
opportunity
fraud
cost.
is one example of probably hundreds just within the state of Minneapolis, and then it's repeated and replayed all over the United States of America. When we first started talking
I
about
think
this
he needs
problem,
a
the
bigger
president
beard.
made it very clear he wanted
Down
us to
to
take
here.
the fraud problem seriously because nobody had it until he was president. We started to figure out one big hole that existed is that the agencies of government weren't actually talking to each other. So Treasury would have evidence of major fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Justice about
Yep.
it. Health and Human Services had evidence of Medicaid fraud, but wasn't talking to the Justice Department. So what this executive order does is force the entire apparatus of the federal government to do two things. Stop the fraud in the American taxpayer and make sure that the benefits that ought by right go to American citizens
It's
go to
embarrassing
American
it is.
citizens and not to fraudsters. Andrew Ferguson will be the vice chair and is going to do a great job. If you're curious what's the
Andrew?
difference between the vice chair and the chair, the vice chair is going to do all the work and I'm going to take all the credit. Andrew.
Say it.
Yeah, look, I mean, millions and millions of Americans pay into these programs every day, and they expect to get something
Right.
out of it. And this fraud is just siphoning
Awesome.
money that millions of Americans pay to fund their hospitals, to fund their daycare centers, into completely fake businesses.
That's
it isn't
right.
just unfair to all of us as
Who is this guy? I
taxpayers who
need to
pay
DM
for
him.
all this.
What's his
it's
name?
particularly unfair to the Americans who need
I'ma follow
this
him on
the
Twitter.
most and watch this money leave their hospital, leave their school system, and go out to
Andrew,
fraud.
what?
And that is why this effort is so important. And I think we've just begun really looking at this, but I think
Take
that
your
one of the things
time.
we're going to find is that in a lot of these agencies, the previous administration was pretty lax about existing anti-fraud controls, and we're going to expose that too.
Yeah, true.
I
And
would
that's
take the
it's
word pretty
intentional.
out.
Uh-huh.
I would change it with
No, he's not on Twitter.
unbelievably lax.
Yeah.
They weren't. Not
Yeah,
even
let
lax.
me know. He
Lax
has
is
Twitter,
a
I'll
good
DM him.
word. The previous
day.
administration was fraudulent.
You gotta get these roaches,
Okay,
bro.
and I think that's what you're going to find also. And, you know, we worked so hard, like most favored nations drug prices. For years, people have wanted. We paid the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by far, by 5 times, 6 times, 10 times more than London would be paying in New York, and
That's so
more than
stupid. Should never happen.
any city in Europe was paying than our cities. We would have a pill that would sell for $10.
What do you
in,
want?
Munich, in Germany, would sell for $10, and in New York it would be $130 or whatever. And we worked so hard,
It's live, yes, live.
and we pulled it off. It's called Most Favored Nations. So now we went from by far the most expensive drugs anywhere in the world, prescription
cheapest.
drugs,
No, not cheapest,
to
but
the
cheap.
least expensive. And I had to get all the
Been
nations
subsidized
to
medical
agree, and
research
I don't
in the
want to
entire
bore you
world.
with how I
Yeah.
did it, but I did it. Everyone
did it.
said it was
Wow.
impossible to do, including the drug
Everybody said it-
companies. And we did
everybody
it.
said it was
We worked so
impossible.
hard on it.
But he did
And we're
it.
going to save so much money for the people. Your drug
That tie
prices are going to be
sucks.
dropping at levels never even, by
That tie
50, 60,
sucks so
70,
much,
80% in some cases.
What a
But
shitty tie.
you work so hard, and then you see them stealing $19 billion. It's like in one pocket, out the
I
other.
don't like it.
And I think
I don't
Andrew
like it.
and JD, I think they have maybe one of the most important jobs.
They do.
Maybe it could be one of the most important things that we're signing because
Thank you, sir.
I really believe that they have an opportunity to do something so good for our country. People talk about balancing budgets. You can't balance a budget when people are stealing $19 billion and nobody's ever heard of anything like it.
Yeah.
We had, I guess, in the same state, you went autism, where 4 or 5 years ago they spent $1 million, and now it's
like
almost
37.
$400 million in just a
Oh.
few years. Well,
Damn, those
autism
kids is retarded.
didn't go up like that, and even the 1 million was probably a fraud. But it went
Let's
from
go.
1 million to almost 400 million in just a few years. These are crooked people. They basically said everybody in the state had autism. These are crooked, horrible
Well,
people. And, I was elected on with JD, Make America Great Again.
I've heard of
Those are-
that.
And we can't have this stuff happening.
Right.
We have to be respected. And they left. So I'm going to sign this. We'll take some questions, but let me
Essentials
sign this first
only.
before I don't forget. Let's see. Before I decide not to, okay?
Yes, sir.
I don't forget not to, but maybe I'll decide not to. I would decide not to if I didn't think they could do the job. I would decide not to. But that'll be a terrible thing. I think you're
Yeah?
going to find numbers.
Is that
Andrew,
right?
I think you're going to
I
find
never
numbers
forget.
that are far higher than you even think. And Andrew came to us. He said, "Sir, he's read the stories about Minnesota. We know California
Saw it on Twitter.
many times worse, but Minnesota's terrible. They're all terrible.
Beautiful.
Those cities are terrible. New York is terrible.
Starting to show his age. He is almost
What's
80.
going on in Chicago, Illinois, with that slob of a governor is terrible. And the kind of money we're
Oh,
talking
Fatty? I remember
is-
Fatty.
is just country changing. It's country changing money. It's having a deficit to having a really profitable
Pritzker,
country
yeah.
where you can lower your taxes substantially.
That's
for
his name,
people.
just Fatty.
And I think that's
Everybody
I think
knows
you have
who
an
it is.
opportunity to do. And I think you two guys are the right guys. If you guys can't do it, we've got a problem.
Well,
Because nobody else will
they
be
let
able
me.
to do
I
it.
can do
Huh?
it. I'll do
Sir.
it. Be easy.
So I'll sign, and then we'll take some nice questions from
Wow.
our wonderful media.
I love how that's a joke. Great, finally.
Okay.
Go on.
Good one.
Here you go.
Idiot. Fucking stupid idiot,
Very
JD.
important. It's a big
Dumbass.
deal. We've been working
Drop
on
the
this
pen.
very long. See that? Will? Andrew, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. You said during your State of the Union that this type of fraud, the corruption, is the type of thing that can shred the fabric of a nation.
He's right.
Why do you suppose then that leaders in recent memory haven't looked at the systemic amount of fraud that's
Because
taking
they're crooked.
place? And
Because they're crooked.
Yeah.
They make money.
Simple.
They gain power. They use it for power.
Exactly.
Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block.
Yep, there it is.
100%. They make a deal
Racial
with the
block
Somalians.
voting.
They all vote because they're on a gravy
Free
train.
money. See, he's been watching the
It's,
stream.
it's coming. It's money first,
Yep.
power second. A lot of people say power first now.
I think it's power
money
first,
first.
but okay.
Power second. Did you ever see where like Mercedes? People come over from Somalia. They have no money, and now they're buying Mercedes-Benz cars. Okay, it's more cash goes out of the Minnesota airport than any other place in the world. or
Why
something.
is that? Where's it
We're
going?
going to find it. And Minnesota's really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general's totally corrupt. Just like the New York State attorney general, Letitia James. She's a highly
He's trying to sit back.
brag. She is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These
Yeah.
are corrupt people.
I actually did.
And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they Don't do it. We're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job,
Thank you, sir.
no, it's possible. If they don't do a good job, the country's sort of in trouble. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Two questions for
And I think they're going to do a great job. Go ahead.
First, Mr. Vice President, Democrats are already calling you the fraud czar. What's your reaction to that title? And then second, given
I like
your
it.
past skepticism of foreign adventurism, are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president.
Did he say the N-word?
The president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon.
Oh, yeah.
We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for a success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on
He's
terror.
trying to play games on him.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the
Trump's
job
like,
done, to do a
yeah.
good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Look, JD's been great. But here's the simple thing, and I have, some people, I don't want wars. I want wars less than almost anybody.
Oh, wow.
Peace with
That's
strength. But you know what? I've watched Iran for a long time. I called them out 20 years ago when I was a civilian that liked watching it.
He saw the
And
tweets.
they're violent, vicious people. The leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks.
That's it?
They put out a memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you. There's not that many protests.
Why aren't the protests?
Every form of gun you get, they shoot them right through the middle. They're violent. They have nuclear weapons. They use some of them very strong. They like I do about wars.
Yeah.
And I say, you get the people leadership. Massive power. I don't even want to discuss how powerful it is. This is what we should have. Definitely we should have. They said, and you don't want to fight war. No, we don't want to fight war. So, using that these people, that frankly is simple. If you believe that something wrong with you, because the only question is, within 1 hour if they do it for 1 day, and they will blow up the entire Middle East, not just Israel. They start with Israel. And you get to see that, which you would expect to be something that says, listen, it's to every country within 1,000 miles of them. They're blowing up countries that were not some friends. They're actually blowing up some friends. They're blowing up the people that handle their accounts.
Big
They're
mistake.
sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to protect the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate for operating in the horrible Iran nuclear deal, which I did in my first dumbest deal, perhaps the dumbest deal, danger deal, we wouldn't have the nuclear deal 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have blown up the Middle East and they would have been. And to deploy the people bomb that did that bomb. This looks small, but it's very big. Because it's the only plane capable of carrying a
Wait, that's not a real one?
200,000 pound bomb, so I don't know how they do it. Because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs. But had I not said this incredible machine times numerous others
Okay.
to
Buy one?
hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark, every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that
Wow.
with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that
That's a
bombing
lot.
took place.
It's pretty bad.
And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set
Yep.
long ago, long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more
It could
important,
have.
this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that,
Yeah.
I think they're actually, they're either
Retarded.
evil or
Say
they're
retarded.
stupid.
Say retarded.
So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it,
Yeah.
then you have to absolutely love what I've done because in 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weapons, they have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they
He
think
almost said he's dead.
maybe the sun is gone. They're all
there it
gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us,
Damn.
for the whole world. We took the
Cardboard? Yeah.
worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the world, a country that is sick, and it has a religious fervor. And when you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was
Damn,
a terrible
Donald
thing.
with the
I'm
fedora
very
tape.
proud of what we did. And I think JD
Damn.
understands better than most. If you give Iran a
I didn't
nuclear
expect
weapon,
that.
at least a very substantial part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective?
Yeah.
It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 in the morning, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see that dive, they start diving, and you see him 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them. And they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs.
Yeah.
Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country.
What technology.
I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I did not have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent administration. And if that group of people, in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter, would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thanking you? What are their conversations like when you talk about this?
Yeah, they should be. Should be saying thank you.
Well, they should be thanking me.
Yeah,
Because many
that's
of them
what I
get
said.
90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you, but they should be thanking us. Japan gets 95%, China 91%. Many of the countries, South Korea gets a tremendous percentage of their oil and therefore their energy from the Straits, or as they call it, the Strait. And they should be not only thanking us, they should be helping us. What does surprise me is that they're not eager to help. There are a couple. We'll be announcing some names soon. There are some that really were right up front. I would announce their name now, other than maybe they'd prefer it not being announced for whatever reason. I will say this: it's a lot easier to get people today than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before we destroyed before we obliterated the country, before we took out, because they're down to about 8% of their missiles. They're down to a small portion of their drones.
Is that
we've demolished many of their factories where they make the missiles and the drones, and the rest are all following. Our military has been amazing. We hit Carg Island, took out every single thing on Carg Island except one thing. We left the pipes, because if we take out the pipes, it takes a long time to build them. And at some point, something's going to happen that's positive with respect to those pipes.
We'll see.
But there are some countries that greatly disappointed me. And I'm the one that got them to pay from 2% to 5% of GDP, NATO. And I get along great with those countries in NATO, but I always said, the problem with NATO is we'll always be there for them, but they'll never be there for us. And when I hear the UK, which was sort of considered the Rolls-Royce of allies, right? Wouldn't you say? They were the oldest, and they were going to be there. And I say it would be really helpful if you'd send over a couple of ships, and if you have some minesweepers, which they do, be very helpful. And the Prime Minister is a nice man. I think he's a very nice guy. He says, well, I'd like to ask my team. I said, you don't have to worry about a team. You don't have a team. You're the Prime Minister. You can make a decision. Well, I have to speak to my people. I said, you don't have to speak to anybody.
Just tell me.
So it was very disappointing. And then after we obliterated them and destroyed their military, the whole thing,
they need to capture
it became
Starmer,
a much safer zone.
like Maduro,
He said, we're going to send over 2 aircraft carriers. I said, I don't want them anymore. I don't want them after we win. I want them before we start. I don't need your aircraft carriers after we've already won. So, those things are very disappointing. And you have to remember, we have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? I've been saying it for a long time. This is the greatest thing to come out of this. We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there.
True.
Many of them would not be there. And we're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country. Some have been very good. 1 or 2 have been great. I'll tell you who the great ones are at the right time. But there have been some that were right up there, Peter. They were right up there. They wanted to do it so much. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that might be their retaliation?
Nobody, no. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit. They were, I wouldn't say friendly countries. They were like neutral. They lived with them for years. Peter, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel with their nuclear weapon. But after we knocked out their nuclear potential weapon, they started building missiles, thousands and thousands of missiles. And they were going to do it with missiles while they developed. These are sick people. While they developed nuclear, somehow they were going to start at a different site, because that site was, you saw the site, the mountain. They were going to go into a certain area, which we know exactly where it is, and they were going to do that. And it's incredible what we've done. I tell you, the job we've done.
Wow.
If I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal,
he said it again.
you would right now Well, Israel would be gone. It would be incinerated, and probably the Middle East likewise. And remember, they have all of those missiles. And I heard they were sending missiles to UAE. I said,
What?
that's strange. You know, UAE is like the banker for Iran. They're like the banker. Qatar, their neighbors, they got along okay. Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, Kuwait is getting hit. Bahrain is getting. All these countries are getting hit.
Why?
There was no expert that would say that was going to happen. It's not a question of like, gee, should you have known? And if we did know, big deal. I mean, we have to do what we have to do. But we hit them so hard like nobody's ever been hit. We hit them very hard. And we've extinguished most of their missiles. We've extinguished most of their drones.
Hard.
We've extinguished most of the places where the missiles and the drones are built. We've fully extinguished 2 layers of leadership and probably a third, if you believe some stories. So we only have one thing, to have a little choke point. And they've used it very well for years, but it doesn't work. But I think this, if some of these countries that we've been good to for years, and maybe more important than that, some of these countries that get 90% and 95% of their energy from Hormuz.
True.
The Strait. Hormuz, a famous, wonderful, beautiful place, but you wouldn't want to be necessarily sailing a boat there right now.
I would not.
Okay, you know why? Not because of them, because of us. Because we've taken out their entire Navy. We've taken out every one of their drone, they call it a drone layer, a mine layer. There's specific boats that are meant
to
put mines on. How would you like to have a nation that has 22 boats where their sole function, they're very different looking boats. You wouldn't want one for your family. They're not pretty. Their sole function is to lift a mine into the water and drop it a certain number of feet down.
That's all they do.
But they had 22 of them. We've taken out all of them. But you can probably drop them off other boats. So we don't even know. By the way, we don't know that any mines have even been dropped. But the thought that they would scares people that have billion-dollar ships.
Boats,
Yeah.
It's an expensive boat.
Thank you, President Trump. I'd like to ask the Vice President about his plans to go after possible fraud in California and New York.
Oh.
Of course, about Minnesota.
Where that?
President Trump, first could I ask you, you said earlier today that the new Supreme Leader, Buttigieg Committee, you don't know if he's dead or alive. There are a couple interesting reports about him today. There's one report that he just narrowly escaped death in the first airstrike.
Gay. Talk about him being gay.
There's another report that he may actually be gay despite leading a theocracy that hangs gay people. How do you determine what's true, and do you have an assessment of this?
Is he
Well, so far
gay?
nobody knows. If you look at his father, he used to give talks a lot. You know,
Is he
talking
gay
about
or
death
not?
to America. He'd say death to America. all the
He
time.
would.
When they say death
likes
to
saying
America,
that.
you should believe them, because that's what they would have. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. But they never had the chance. I never gave them the chance to use it. And other presidents should have done. I spoke to one of the former presidents who I actually like. I actually speak to some. I do like some people. Be shocking. And he said, "I wish I did what you did.
Bill?
Could have done it." Other presidents,
Was it
somebody
Bill?
should have done it. 47 years this went on. They call Iran the bully of the Middle East. And you could have never had the Abraham Accords. You could never have had peace in the Middle East. Now you're going to have peace. You could never do it with the dark cloud of a nuclear
The Ayatollah?
Iran.
The gay
But
Ayatollah?
Iran is a shell
Yeah,
of
not the
itself. It's no
Ayatollah.
longer a bully. It's the one that gets bullied. It's a bully that got beat up. We beat the crap out of them.
Damn.
And they deserve that.
Fuck 'em.
You know, when you see a soldier walking down the street without his arms or being helped down the
Who
street
paid
because
for
he's
that
got no
bomb?
legs,
That's right.
or his face is blown to smithereens
Yeah,
with no
who
legs
paid
and
for
no
the
arms,
bomb?
those two, no legs, no arms,
Gay
and a
Ayatollah.
face that got racked. That was done by roadside bombs. That's the favorite weapon of Soleimani, who I killed
Oh, yeah.
in my first administration.
They blew up the boat.
General Soleimani. Had I not killed him, that was the beginning of their downfall, because had he
beginning
not
of the
gone,
end.
it's possible that we would not be this far advanced in destroying Iran, because he was a really good general. He was a vicious, horrible man, but he was a brilliant general.
Yeah.
And he was looking to
Yeah.
knock out 5 of our military bases at one time.
What
and the
an
man
asshole.
that died with him
What a
was
dickhead.
the same, his counterpart in Iraq. And they were working together. And they got hit real.
Cat, egg. Well, a lot of new players always like to ask, what's the best gun? What's the tier list? Well, for Darkest Days, first and most, any gun could be viable, with an exception of pistols, just because of the sheer lacking of firepower. But I'm going to go through all the data for each gun, and you can really just decide for yourself. But personally, it's just a preference thing. Each gun shoots different, each gun feels different, and with drawbacks and situational standpoints. Anyways, this is a data chart that I put together. It basically is a simple DPS chart, and I highlighted the highest DPS per category of gun. And as you can tell, the light machine gun, or the large machine gun, the MG 240, has the highest number, with an exception to the shotgun Alpha 12, because the shotgun, of course, is going to do more damage if you land every pellet on the head, which is really unrealistic. But if you do, those are the numbers, ranging at 13k versus a 9.3k. So if we go down the list, we have the C1911, which is the Deagle. That's, well, Darkest Days variant of the Deagle at 4.4k DPS. Tommy gun at 8.5k DPS, which is the newest gun that came out. The SPR-12 at 8.2k DPS, and the Krinkov 47, which is the AK-47 at 8.7k DPS. Now, it's all subjective. I mean, the data itself is static, and how I measured it is basically taking ammo times damage divided by the cycle time. The cycle time does include the reload, because, yeah, in traditional sense, DPS is just constant damage, which means that you have to include your reload cycle within that time variant, because you're not going to whip out a gun with 0 bullets and then start shooting. And feasibly in a game like Darkest Days, you're constantly going to be shooting zombies over and over, and it just heavily relies on your reload cycle. So within the chart, you'll already see a disparity between guns that have a full reload versus a semi-reload. I can show you an example of that real quick. Like with the Rick, they reloads 1 bullet at a time, as you can tell. And you can shoot, and you can put 1 bullet in, and quickly shoot, which could bolster his DPS, but just to keep everything simple, I just did a full reload for the data's measurements. And then we go back to the chart. As you can tell, all the assault rifles are basically the same DPS except for the Krinkov 47. Does this make the Krinkov 47 better? It is if you can control the recoil and the mass spray. It's pretty bad, as you can see here. And if I just grab any other assault rifle, try it out. It is just easier to manage. But like I said, it comes down to personal preference and why I think that these minor DPS numbers, minor as in the gap between each one of them, isn't as big of a deal, is because there's an enhance system. So enhancing basically allows you to upgrade your weapon and increase it a tier. So if I do this, it says it gets 93 extra attack power, which overall bolsters it. So if you really care about tier lists with guns, by raw data, those 5 guns are technically the top of their tier list within their subcategories. Now, I'll make an exception for the Recon Scout because that is the most budget-friendly sniper rifle with the highest DP or the highest raw damage output, and with a simple scout +3 with any kind of headshot damage. As you can tell, I don't have any, so I needed to make it to a +4. If you have a +3 scout with headshot damage, any percent, you're able to one-shot 45 zombies in the head, which is technically the most common high-level zombies you'll see in the game. Overcap, and that's just the minimum that you would need, and it's easy to make. You can literally craft it at Forge level 6, Forge level 5 right here. So farming for it is simple. On top of Krinkov is always popular because high DPS and it's also a craftable gun. So within the first tier, and then by the time you get to Forge level 6, you can craft the SR version, getting it to a and try to chance for a 14% Krinkov, such as this one right here. Fully crafted, easy to make, a little bit harder to upgrade since SR upgrade toolkits are a little bit more on the rare side versus the rare variant. Anyways, if going on to enhancements, and what does enhancements mean? So you use ER and you're going to use a ton of Milla, which is the in-game currency to upgrade your guns. And how it comes down, I have a little chart next to the data sheet basically saying at normal variant is going to take 20k. So if you try to upgrade any normal gun, it's going to take normal rarity gun is going to take 20k Milla, 10 ER. If you do any rare variant, it's going to do 50k Milla, 20 ER. If you do any SR goes to 100k Milla, 30 ER. And of course, SSR goes to 250k Milla and 50 ER, which is a pretty steep jump. And unless you can massively farm the money on top of the ER, then I would not recommend doing SSR. A lot of endgame players also don't really advise SSR unless you're really trying to push rank and whale, because those kits, you only get an SSR upgrade kit if you decomp an level 40 SSR, and those are fairly rare to come by. So if we're talking about meta-wise, an SR or an R weapon will get you pretty far, even just to +3. And with the R weapon, because of how cheap it is, you can just keep pushing its ranks and go even further. So how does the enhancement tier calculate it? So there's something, I would like to say it just bolsters a level. If a N grade tier is 1, let me show you. So if this is at 1300, this impoverished gun is +0. This is level 40, right? And we find a green variant of it right here. This is level 40 +1. If the normal variant is the base scale, then the green variant is just 1 tier higher. So if I were to +1 this normal variant, it should turn into a green variant of that same level. Except it gets also penetration, and it also gets penetration for the upgrade. So if I grab these two guns real quick and I go so 1300, 1397, select this, go to upgrades, right here, 97 attack power, they're equivalent. So this means a green is a +1 white, And going down the scale, an SR is a +2 white. As of the last patch, an SSR is not a +3 white, it is a +4 white. So you would think like, oh, you need an SSR because it comes in as a +4 white in theory, but it's still level 40. So the complications between that is every time you upgrade a weapon, it not only does the attack power go up, the penetration does too. This means you get to shoot through the enemy's defense, the zombies' defenses even better. And this is more important than the raw damage number itself, because the higher the level the zombies go, the stronger they go. The stronger their defenses are, obviously, but to an absurd scale. So a +5 R weapon would do neutral damage to a level 45 zombie because it's on par with levels. +5 4E weapon is technically a level 45 weapon. Then like an SSR at a +3 because you're missing 2 levels of just penetration that it negates. And the defense that it has just reduces your damage by a lot. Like I could one-shot a bruiser with his +4 recon scout just because it's a +4, not because of its high damage or any good substats. It's just sheerly because it has a high enhance rate, and if it gets to a +5, then it's basically a one-shot headshot for any zombie within the game because it's just on level. And you may have noticed this as you're grinding up, when your weapon's like 5 levels down and you're trying to kill zombies, and it just doesn't work as effectively. But if you get like a quote-unquote weaker weapon that's on level, it'll do significantly more damage. As you can tell, at level 45 or at level 43, zombie goes down with one shot. So let's go find a bruiser that's level 45. So it's more important that you just enhance your weapon to 3 or even 5 than it is to get a good weapon. Of course, get a good weapon and enhance it. Here's a 44, and if you see closely, it didn't die in one shot. I had to have Liam do the last killing blow. So it's just not strong enough, and it's that damage reduction from levels that really kills it. So it is more important to, there you go, 44, not a one shot versus a 43, just because it's an overleveled gun. So anyways, going back to enhancements, if I were to have to recommend an SR or an R with a good substack like Liam's gun, with a 14% headshot damage, this is golden. You can just upgrade this all the way if you have the kits. SR is a little bit more pricey. I do recommend an R weapon because you can easily bolster it to 5, and it'll be a good training gun to bring you into endgame to farm for any other guns that you would like to use. So that is basically the gist of enhancements. And I forgot how to explain to get ER. So it's self-explanatory. Once you get to 40, you have multiple different options. You can kill titans, flowers, or hordes of level 36 to 40. The bigger mobs have to be level 40. So titans, flowers. On top of Gigas, I believe he drops 11 ER. Every titan and flower drops 5 ER. Or you can go into Rootlands right here and do the extraction shooter game mode that's PvPvE. If you live in NA like I do, it's fairly empty, so it's no issues running into players, especially for mobile players. If you're scared that a PC player might dome you when you walk out of a house, you don't really need to fret as much depending on the time you play. I know personally, I don't go out hunting people since we're all just there for ER. I'm not much of a PvP head anyways. And yeah, ER would just be the endgame currency next to Milla. How to get stacks of Milla. You always have all these white items and you just sell it to birds. And every 20 items I usually get for it is like around 50k. And these are basically cheaper by the dozen. You'll get these in abundance. So 74k, easy, sales, done. And if you ever missell an item, you can always just buy it back. Of course, at a loss, but that's just the way it is. So I don't want to discourage or push a meta, but these are just the gun stats. These are the raw data checked for each gun variant. Hope it helps, and like and subscribe, I suppose. Bye bye.
Hard. And if that didn't happen, we would have a problem. But maybe more importantly than that, he was really the mastermind behind it. And they never found somebody to replace him in terms of the genius. I knocked him out, and that was a big step, knocking him out. But if we didn't get rid of the Obama deal, I terminated it against the wishes of my then Secretary of State. He was no Marco. Against the wishes a lot of people at the time. You remember that, Peter? A lot of people. And I not terminated. Remember that, Stephen? You remember? That deal was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have had it 3 years ago, and it would have been used, I would say, 2 to 3 years ago.
Maybe.
And it would have been used in the after they were finished that, they were coming over. They never got a chance to do it.
I just want to ask you about something very interesting.
Why were you right about everything?
That you talked to another former president, not the Iranian president. Was it George W. Bush?
No.
Was it Bill Clinton?
I don't want to say. I don't want to say. Because a member of a party, they have Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh my God!
Somebody that happens to like me, and I like.
It was Bill Clinton.
That person. But that person said.
Oh my God! It was.
I wish it was.
I mean, maybe it was Obama.
But I don't want to get into. I don't want to get into trouble. Maybe. Hey,
that would be
you know
funny
what?
if it was Obama.
I think you probably know. You know, it's interesting.
I think you probably
maybe he'd be proud. I could even ask him that. Would you like me to reveal your name to Peter at Fox? Well, at least you have high ratings. Your ratings are through the roof.
If it was Obama, that'd be funny.
Can I ask you another question about the war? If Iran, as you say, totally obliterated, got the missiles, got the first 2 rounds of leadership, Air Force gone, Navy gone, can we wrap this war up this week?
This week?
Yeah, sure.
Will we?
Wait, he just says, yeah, sure, we can wrap the war up this week.
And we're going to have a much safer world when it's
just out of
wrapped up.
nowhere.
It'll be wrapped up.
Yeah, sure.